In last week's video, I addressed the fundamental flaw for Ted with regards his relationships and why it seems like they are destined to fail every single time, especially with his proposal to Stella at the end of the season 3 finale. But I did mention in passing that I plan on making other videos about events prior to the finale, as they did also confirm certain things I suspected about Ted or had me questioning his motives entirely. And one of them is about events 2 episodes prior to the finale when Ted reveals the secret that Stella had entrusted to him in confidence. And he found a way to finagle his way into an apology that had me wondering, was Stella overreacting in the scenario, or is Ted Mosby even more manipulative than we initially thought? But before I get into all of that, if this is your first time finding my channel or watching this particular video series, hello, I'm Noria and welcome to my How I Met Your Mother series, where I'm at the moment documenting my first time ever watch of the show while sharing my thoughts as I go along. In a stream of consciousness style method where I chat about these characters and their choices, try to analyze their behavior and make guesses about my expectation based off of my thoughts on how things are progressing or what I learn with every new episode. Like I said, this is my first time ever watch of the show. I have never seen it, and I've so far been able to stay away from discussions about the show and its characters. So this is a blind reaction for a series that I know ran to its completion years ago, but I never found the interest to dive into it until right now. And from what I've gathered, those of you who have been watching my How I Met Your Mother videos do enjoy watching me guess my way in the dark. As such, I would ask that you please continue to maintain and follow my pleas and my request to not drop any spoilers in the comments. If you do want to say something that addresses a point I made, but that veers into spoiler territory, just give the spoilers ahead warning with a bunch of asterisks so I don't accidentally get spoiled and can ignore the comments, whilst other subscribers or non-subscribers who are watching my videos can interact with your comment and you all can chat about how right or wrong I am and what I've missed or noticed in the process. And for those keeping track, I still haven't watched beyond season 3, episode 20, even though today's video centers the event of episode 18 and how it ties to previous episodes and what it tells us about the character of Ted Mosby. And if this is your first time stumbling on one of these videos, kindly note that I do have a format where I split my video into 3 parts. The first is the intro, which you're watching right now, followed by the synopsis, and then my actual thoughts. As such, I do have timestamps put in to help you with navigating this video as you so choose. Of course, before I get into the synopsis part, I would like to say a big thank you to my lovely patrons and YouTube members whose support have been instrumental in helping me continue to make content, especially since I started doing this full time at the start of last year, which was the last time I was in paid employment. And a special shout out to Lena, Sherry, and Holly for their extra support. You get all the hearts and kisses too. Mwah. If you too would like to support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member to enjoy certain perks, even get a shout out, the link to do so is in the description. And with that said, How I Met Your Mother season 3 episode 19 titled Rebound Bro basically spans 2 major story points. Barney dealing with the void he feels now that Ted has cut all contact with him and has stopped being his friend, which once again I do have plans to make a video on that. And Stella and Ted's first big argument slash fight as it pertains to his inability to keep his damn mouth shut. As such, the episode begins with Ted's decision to take his relationship with Stella to the next logical step, i.e., it's about time they have sex for the very first time. The problem, though, is that Stella is very reluctant and keeps putting it off. Things come to a head one day, however, when Ted shows up to the clinic where Stella works, determined and ready to have sex with her there and then. Which, seriously, dude, I know it's meant to be a joke, but seriously, really, at her place of work? Anyway, Stella doesn't take the bait and finally comes clean about why she's been so hesitant to take the step all this while. You see, Stella has not been in a relationship in quite a while and hasn't had sex with anyone else in that period of time either, which means she hasn't gotten laid in 5 years. Ted is stunned at the revelation and finds himself sharing this news with his friends at McLaren's when next they meet, and Marshall spends the entire time, that duration of conversation, outlining the many world events that have happened since the last time that Stella had sex. Stella, meanwhile, had agreed to finally cross that divide with Ted, and on the night she comes to his apartment so that they can hang out and do just that, she runs into Lily and Marshall, who are all chatty with their innuendos about Stella's long spell and her finally putting an end to it. And she's able to put two and two together and realize that her boyfriend can't keep his mouth shut for shit and had spilled the beans to his friends. Lily and Marshall, realizing that they have seriously overstepped, apologize and leave Stella and Ted alone for the confrontation that ensues. Stella tells Ted that she cannot trust him anymore, and whilst he insists that she can, she points out that there is always a reason why one can choose to not have sex with someone, and Ted just gave her his. To which Ted cuts in that was it that he gave her a reason, or was she already looking for one, seeing that things were getting serious between them, and he believes that that fact is what is scaring Stella away? Stella is stunned and walks away. But she comes around the next morning and tells Ted that maybe she overreacted due to her myriad of trust issues, but she can admit that Ted is right. He really wasn't. But we'll come back to this in a bit. She continues that she indeed was scared about the fact that their relationship was getting too serious and was terrified of what that would mean. And so she was looking for a reason to not get close to him and to stop things in their infancy. But now she's all in, and the two of them kiss, after which she then takes Ted to her own apartment to meet her daughter Lucy so Ted can get to know her and vice versa. And afterwards, she tells Ted that her sister is still in town and can babysit for her, and the two of them rush to the nearest motel where they finally have sex for the first time. After which, Ted jokes that he wants to run real quick to make a phone call to Marshall and Lily to tell them about the good news, and Stella hits him playfully. As you all can probably tell, this girl is not impressed. Anyway, whilst all of this is happening with Ted and Stella, Barney, who is reeling from Ted's decision to cut him out of his life, is in a desperate search for a rebound bro who he can be a wingman to help him bed women the way Ted used to. Unfortunately, every single one of his contacts that Barney reaches out to either cannot compare to the magnificence of Ted or have other priorities in their lives at the moment, leaving Barney with little options, and thus he finds himself saddled with his colleague Randy, an absolute klutz, but one who is in awe of Barney's skills as a pickup artist and hopes that Barney will be able to help him. Things don't go as planned, however, as Barney finds that Randy, who hasn't had sex in 13 years, is quite unsuccessful at picking up women because, matter of fact, just a conversation with an attractive woman is enough to give Randy a nosebleed and an erection simultaneously, which makes all of Barney's attempts evaporate in the wind. Realizing just how much of a hopeless case Randy is, Barney decides to entreat Robin for help so Randy can practice his skills with her until he has the confidence to hopefully try them out with other women. That still ends in a bust, even though Randy knows that Robin isn't actually a woman he's trying to go home with. Frustrated, Randy tells Barney that he really is a hopeless case and a failure, and that this is something he's always had to deal with in his life, even when he was a police officer for only 3 months due to his incompetence. Barney, though, considers this a big advantage, and the next woman that he helps Randy strike a conversation with, Barney lets it slip to her that Randy used to be a cop, something that clearly has her all hot and bothered, even though I have no idea why. And when Randy gets a nosebleed, Barney lies that the reason is because Randy has a bullet lodged up his sinuses, and that is what is causing the bleeding. The woman is delighted to take Randy to her apartment so she can take care of him, to Randy's delight and Barney's satisfaction that he still got it as a wingman. When Robin congratulates him on a job well done, however, and mentions Ted, Barney is back to being sad and depressed. The end. Now, I will admit right out the bat that I might be a bit biased with regards how I reacted to this episode for two reasons. One, my privacy is something that is important to me. If I share something deep and personal with you and you deem it necessary to share that same information with someone else, I will cut you off faster than you can say Jack Robinson. Or if it ends up being someone who I cannot cut off, best believe you will never ever regain my trust. Ever. My mother till date cannot fathom why I don't tell her the important bits of my life. And she has no idea that this is because she read my diary when I was 11 and told my dad about a crush I had in school. For context, that was 24 years ago. I bear grudges like a motherfucker. So, yes, if I trust you and you cannot keep your bloody mouth shut, I am not telling you shit ever again. The second reason why I did feel so angry at this episode and the way in which it played out is the fact that I am grey ace. So I fall on the asexuality spectrum, but I am not sex repulsed. I'm just picky. And so to me, Stella going through a 5 year dry spell was no big deal. I know society is deeply allosexual and everyone likes to act like if you don't like sex or enjoy it as frequently as the majority do, then something must be wrong or it's something to be scandalized about. But as far as I'm concerned, it's no big deal. So, given the context of the two things I just mentioned, I'm sure you can piece together why the way the situation of things played out in the episode pissed me off to no end. That every single person in that friend group acted like the world was ending just because it's been 5 years since Stella got laid last was irritating to me, even as much as it confirms yet again just how disparate Stella and Ted's worlds truly are. Ted can jump into bed with anyone he wants whenever he wants, and that is perfectly fine, mind you, before someone thinks that I have a problem with Ted's sex drive. But like I said, Ted can do that as he pleases. Stella doesn't have the same luxury because she is a mother. And I don't know how short of a memory Ted Mosby has, but if their first date had to happen within the space of 120 seconds because she really has very little time for herself, how the hell does he think that she would have been able to carve enough time to have sex with someone else when she's just so busy with work and her own kid and her protectiveness of said kid and the men that would gain access to her daughter by virtue of her fucking them? Moments like that just once again confirm how, even though Ted at this point has hit his 30s, is still way more immature than Stella. And that immaturity brings me back to his fucking loose lips. Now, I did get a comment from someone in my last video where they were trying to make a case for Ted by pointing out that, well, Ted and his friends don't keep secrets from each other, they tell each other everything. And yes, whilst I do agree with that point, it doesn't make it better either that Ted cannot keep his fucking mouth shut about his own secrets. Doesn't mean that his friends are entitled to the secrets of others. Like, let us be real. A secret is not just a juicy beast of gossip that you should be vibrating out of your own skin with the desire to share it as wildly as you can. A secret is a moment of vulnerability shared with you by someone who believes they can trust you with it. The onus, therefore, is on you to respect that and, by extension, respect them by keeping their secrets. Stella, having a very long dry spell, wasn't Ted's secret to share, it was hers. She gave it up to him as someone she's dating, someone she does want to get close to and have that moment with, whilst at the same time she has the fears and concerns that since she's gone without for that long, things might not be as easy as she remembers it. As much as Ted has nerves in the episode because he wants to make it right for Stella, which I appreciate, mind you, I don't think it's far fetched to consider that Stella herself is also dealing with the nerves of getting back into the saddle of things after her long hiatus from the act. And so, having Ted, because he believes that he has to share everything with his friends, decide to share Stella's own secret because of this insistent need to be an oversharer and does so with the rest of the McLaren 5 doesn't make it okay. That Ted Mosby and his friends cannot maintain healthy boundaries within their relationship with each other does not make it okay. And just because they do so with each other doesn't mean that Stella, by virtue of her dating Ted, has signed up to have her private life with him up for debate or discussion within the group. And they are very aware of this, mind you. It's the reason why Lily and Marshall immediately feel guilty when they realize that they've let it slip to Stella that they know about her dry spell. Matter of fact, none of that conversation with her was even appropriate either because Stella, whilst being friendly with them, isn't actually friends with them. And that entire endeavor and interaction was just gross. It says a lot about Ted's relationship with the women he's been with so far that they have to be fully accepted into the group before he commits to them. And the price for that acceptance, it seems, is both a case of said woman being on friendly terms with all the friends, which is all well and good because, like Spice Girl sang, if you want to be my lover, you got to get with my friends. So I'm not going to fault him on that. Not really. What I do have fault with is the fact that the price also comes with a healthy dose and sprinkle of nothing in our relationship will ever be private because I will tell my friends everything, even the things we consider a secret. And this is a consistent thing for Ted, by the way. In Zip Zip Zip, he spills to Lily and Marshall Victoria's fears about them moving too fast and her wanting to wait for their 1 month anniversary before they have sex for the first time. Now, you might say that, well, it isn't as bad as how things played out with Stella, but it still gave me the ick regardless. Having zero boundaries and consistently talking about his sex life with the women he is dating, women who are emotionally committed to him, is in a relationship with them, with his friends, is something that Ted does and speaks to how he might be all caught up in his romantic feelings for these women, but still doesn't consider their privacy or vulnerabilities to and with him something that is worth protecting. And I repeat, it makes me so angry. And before anyone comes and tries to say something about how, well, it's only fair because Barney tells them all everything, and Marshall and Lily's entire relationship was one that happened right in the presence of Ted, including their first time. I repeat, just because they do it doesn't mean it isn't a case of them crossing so many boundaries. Unless I am a voyeur and we had the conversation about me watching you have sex, at least have the decency to ask me first. Having sex outside or in the presence of others can be fun, trust me, I know. But let's establish the baseline boundaries first. Also, Bonnie wasn't dating any of the women he hooked up with. He really isn't as bound to keeping their secrets as Ted is, considering the fact that Ted is in a relationship with this women, from Victoria to Stella, hell to even BB, short for blah blah, in the How I Met Everyone Else episode. Because whilst I can say that yes, that wouldn't pan out, I still found it disrespectful as hell that something she had asked him for, to keep how they met a secret from his friends, who she's meeting for the first time, mind you, and he couldn't even be asked to do so. Maybe I'm just being extra harsh on Ted in this regard, but you cannot tell me it's because Ted can't keep a secret. I mean, till now, he still hasn't ever told Marshall the truth of how he did keep Lily's secret when she went for the interview and they were talking in code about her going to get milk. He kept her secret even after she ended her and Marshall's engagement and walked away. So he can and is quite capable of keeping his mouth shut. He just chooses not to in the case of Victoria or Stella or even BB, because as far as Ted Mosby is concerned, they matter less than his friends knowing everything. And then there's how the situation played out after Stella discovers that Ted betrayed her trust and had shared what she said in confidence to Ted with his friends. And this is where I started screaming at the audacity of this man, because Ted, realizing that Stella is pissed, and rightfully so, decides to spin the entire scenario on its head, making the claim that the reason why Stella is so quick to want to walk away from him is because she's afraid of their relationship turning serious, which, mind you, the audacity of this miscreant. Please keep in mind that not 2 episodes after this cow then gets scared that things might actually be getting serious between them and breaks up with her. The way I see it, it was sheer guilty conscience at play, because the person who wanted to bail somewhere in his subconscious was Theodore Evelyn Mosby. Now, back to his fucking accusation, which, let me tell you, I had to take several deep, calming breaths to get through, because it takes a level of insidiousness for you to, at the moment when you've broken someone's trust so irrevocably, try and turn things around to rid yourself of guilt and instead lay that blame on them for not wanting to get into a serious relationship with you, when they have every right to not want that with a partner that has made it so fucking clear that sharing everything, every secret and vulnerability that they should have kept and treasured and cherished, and instead keep giving to friends without any consideration for you. Like the sheer manipulation in this scene. I was pissed. I was furious. I am angry. The narrative of, who am I kidding? This is Ted telling his kids the event. So Ted wants to paint Stella as someone who was scared of commitment and overreacting about him breaking her trust and sharing a private moment that she had with him with his friends, rather than take responsibility and look at himself, his behavior and his choices in that moment as a clear sign that he is someone who is unworthy of the trust of his partners. And that pisses me off. Ted Mosby pissed me off so damn much in this episode. Because for him to sit there and make that statement and that claim, which in turn derailed her justified rage and led to Stella taking those words as truth, as her indeed being afraid of things getting serious, had me throwing my remote at my television. It kind of broke a bit. So now my remote is all wonky and goes off and on. And you know what? That does do an accurate portrayal of my emotional state right now. And so I can live with that because Stella losing her anger due to Ted Mosby's manipulative ass pisses me off. David White, in his book Consolations, The Solace, Nourishment, and Underlying Meaning of Everyday Words, states anger is the deepest form of compassion for another, for the world, for the self, for a life, for the body, for a family, and for all our ideals, all vulnerable and all possibly about to be hurt. Stripped of physical imprisonment and violent reaction, anger is the purest form of care. The internal living flame of anger always illuminates what we belong to, what we wish to protect, and what we are willing to hazard ourselves for. And let me tell you, Stella wanting to protect herself and realizing that this man that she's falling for, that she was considering being intimate with, something that she hasn't done in 5 years, mind you, could not be trusted to keep private things private, is absolutely valid in her anger in that moment. Ted might try and paint her as being unreasonable, especially with how things resolve themselves in the end. But what I saw was Ted Mosby manipulating her, so her anger turned inwards into what she perceived to be her own fear of commitment, when in actual fact, the one with those fears, whose actions confirmed it shortly afterwards, was Ted himself. And no matter how many times he says otherwise, I don't think I will ever be able to forget this moment, this realization that Theodore Evelyn Mosby is so good at manipulating others and himself that he was able to paint that sequence of events as anything but the gross betrayal of a trust given to him. And if it was only with Stella that he had done so, maybe I might have been able to let it go as an accident. But he has done the same with Victoria, he did the same with Bibi, and now a part of me is waiting until he lets something slip about himself and Robin, since multiple instances do lend credence to the truth of who Ted Mosby actually is. Someone, nobody, should be entrusting a secret with. But yeah, these are just my thoughts. I would, as always, love to hear yours. Whether or not you agree with me, please share them in the comments, like this video. However, if you've watched this fan, haven't done so yet, but enjoyed anything of what I had to say, share it so others can find my channel as well. Or you can consider checking out my Gaming Now ASMR channel if they sound like something you might potentially, possibly be interested in. I have them both linked in the description bar. I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.